Hello, it's Karen Berniston here with my monthly Designer Challenge video. The theme this month is Designer's Choice, so a wide open challenge where all of the design team just got to pick their favorite dies to create a card. I created a fun pop-up fence and gate card using mechanisms from our Katherine label pop-up and our Mini Pops pop-up. And I really like the action on this one. So as the card closes, the right side fence folds down, the gate folds in, and the other side comes up and over the top. Now, because I am such a fan of pattern paper, I usually start with the pattern paper. So I found this beautiful piece of 49 and market paper in my stash. It's from Moonlit Garden Thoughtful, and that just sort of set the direction of my entire card. I just have this one sheet of pattern paper, so I'm going to make full use of it. So I'm cutting at 4 3/4 inches from the top, 4 3/4 inches again. That way I've got those pieces that I can use for the inside and the outside. So this center section is going to be the inside of my card. I want the length on those pieces to be 5 3/4. And I'm putting it in my trimmer such that I keep all of the pretty pattern section in the piece, and whatever gets trimmed away is just in that center section that's mostly just white. Now obviously you can make this card using any pattern paper or even just solid colors, but I wanted to show those cuts in case you happen to be using the exact paper that I used. So now I have 2 pieces of pattern paper. They are each 5 3/4 by 4 3/4, and they will fit perfectly inside my 5 by 6 landscape card. So I started with a piece of cardstock, 12 inches long, 5 inches tall, scored in the middle for folding. And then what I'm doing with the upper strip is I'm just going to take that pretty bird off of the left-hand side, and then I'll just take a big enough chunk to fill in the rest of the front of the card with a little bit of overlap. So I can even just use the card to decide about where that needs to be cut. So now I have these pieces that can combine to be the front of the card, and then I'll just figure out how to cover that seam. And then that leftover chunk of pattern paper will be the perfect spot to cut my mechanisms. So from the Katherine label pop-up, I'm going to cut 2 of the mechanisms, and from the Mini Pop set, just 1 of the smaller of the 2 angled platforms. Our dies will fit in any of your major die cutting machines. I am using a Spellbinders Platinum 6. I'm measuring 1 inch from the top of my card and making a mark on the center line so that I can place my mechanism in a good spot. Now I'm going to start working the folds in the mechanisms, and I'm going to start with the Katherine label. So with the Katherine label, I'm going to find the diagonal folds first, and I'm going to fold both of those as mountain folds, meaning I'm folding away from myself. And then on the other spoke of the mechanism, there are 4 folds. Now typically you would fold those as mountains as well, but for this assembly, we're going to fold all 4 of those folds as valley folds, meaning you're folding towards yourself. And then that's going to bring the end around, and it's going to construct the Katherine label box on the front of the mechanism. Whereas normally when you assemble the Katherine label, you fold those as mountain folds and the box ends up behind the mechanism. Either way works, okay? Either way works. For this assembly, it's better to have that fence forward from the mechanism, so we're going to construct it this way, in which the box is forward from the mechanism. Switching to the other Katherine label mechanism, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So the diagonal folds fold first. I fold those as mountain folds, which means away from myself. On the other end of the mechanism, the 4 horizontal folds will all be valley folds. That brings the tapered tab around. Now, can you glue the tapered tab to the inside of the box or the outside of the box? The answer is yes, you can do either. It doesn't matter. So I just happened to pick on the outside of the box, but it could certainly be glued on the inside of the box. Okay, so there we have it. 2 Katherine label mechanisms that are ready to install inside the card. Now, the first one I'm going to do the exact usual assembly. So the usual assembly of the Katherine label is that the adhesive goes out on the outer triangle. So on the front of the mechanism in the outer triangle, that gets the adhesive. I like my LINECO glue for this. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to attach that on the left side of the fold, butted up to the fold but not crossing it, such that the upper edge is even with my pencil mark. Okay, so it's just that triangle that's glued down. You can kind of see that it's sort of like in line with the fold. And now it's the second diagonal fold that I fold, and that's going to bring the box over here, and then I'm going to flatten it towards myself. So finding the flat position of that mechanism on the left side of the card. Then I add adhesive, to the top of the box. Well, I guess it's really technically the bottom of the box, but the upper panel, let's say the upper panel, and then I close the card against that adhesive. And that's going to move that box over to the right side of the card in exactly the correct position for it to pop up and fold down. So there's my mechanism. Now, 49 in market paper is heavy. I probably should have spent a little bit of time really working those folds to loosen them up, but I didn't. So I just got to make sure I go in there and make sure that everything is really glued down nicely. Now, before I go and add my second mechanism to my first one, I'm going to give myself a little extra insurance on that little triangle that has to animate the entire pop-up. I'm going to go in with my stapler and just add a staple through that triangle somewhere to keep it on the card. So yes, that's going to put a staple on the front of my card, but I haven't decorated the front yet, so I can go ahead and add pattern paper to cover it. With my second Katherine label mechanism, I'm going to learn from the first one, which is that 49 in a market paper is pretty heavy. And so I'm going to go in with my bone folder and just really kind of hit those folds, maybe fold them back and forth a few times, the diagonal ones, to make sure they're kind of loosened up so that they will want to open and close nicely. And then kind of do the same on the box, just really working the folds, loosening them up a little bit since that is such heavy paper. Now this mechanism is going to be installed in the exact same manner as the first one. The difference is going to be where the card fold is, because now the card fold is going to be the fold between the first mechanism and the card. That is my new quote-unquote card fold. So I add my adhesive all over the little triangle. With the Katherine label, you install that lined up with the fold on the left side of the fold. So remember, my card fold now is the edge of that first mechanism. So I'm attaching the triangle essentially to the first one. So there's my triangle attached to the first mechanism. Now I need to find the flat position for that mechanism. So it's the second diagonal. Fold on that second diagonal. It'll bring the box over to the left, and then I flatten the box. So there's the flat position for that mechanism. And the adhesive goes in the upper short panel. Okay. And now I need to carefully close the card, and it's going to bring that box over and attach it to the card in exactly the right position so that both mechanisms can lay flat when the card is closed. And then now let me just flip that over to the correct orientation. There's my little staple. And then I'm going to open the card, and it's going to bring up both mechanisms. Now I'm not opening the card the full way yet, just because I want to make sure that that box is really adhered nicely. So I like to take my time with this, go in, press it down, make sure that everything is adhered well. And then now I've got a double pop-up Katherine label. All right, one more mechanism to install, and then it's time for decorating. So with the Mini Pops angled platform, there is one fold up the middle. If I fold that one first, I can actually find the other two at the same time by folding through both layers. And what that'll be is kind of halfway up the arm, so that when you fold everything as a mountain fold, the two ends kind of come together in the middle. All right, but the flat position is where both sides are lined up on top of each other. Fold side is angled outward, and it's going to be the other end that gets the adhesive. So I start at the fold, and then I go out to the other end. So that's the back side of the mechanism. And then where I am installing this is actually in underneath this little shelf right here, where the tapered end is just lined up with that inner fold. So I'm attaching just that first half on back there. See, it's lined up with the fold. So see, this side is loose, and it's that back one that's attached. We got tone on tone here, so let me just kind of throw a Post-it note underneath it so you can see. So this outer section is not attached. It's that underneath that panel that's attached to the card, lined up with that fold that's created by the mechanism. And now I'm going to do the adhesive on the upper tab. So again, I stop when I get to the fold line of the Mini Pops, then I just hold it flat, close the card, and it's going to attach that little angled platform to the other side. So now when the card opens, I basically have that little Mini Pops platform coming out into that popped up position, and that's going to be a great spot to build the gate. All right, let's talk about decorator pieces. From the Fence Add-ons set, I'm using the fence, the grass, and the flowers. From the Flower Pot Add-ons set, I'm using the vine and the butterfly. And from Bouquet Bits, I am using the birdhouse and the bird. I decided to use a 100-pound white cardstock for my fences. It wouldn't necessarily have to be 100-pound, but I just thought that it would be nice to, have that fence be really solid. Now on this right-hand side, I could use the full fence, but since I have this bird in the pattern paper and I want to be able to see it, I'm going to trim off a little bit of the right side of that fence. So that for me is only because of the pattern paper that I chose. All right, counting from the left, it's fence post 3 and 4 that are going to hit the box. So that's where I want the glue. So on the back, I'm going to do glue in fence post 3 and 4, just kind of at the bottom and then a little bit up the fence post, kind of looking at my mechanism to figure out about how far up that fence post I can go to stay within the limits of the box. So really important with pop-ups that you don't have stray adhesive, although I will say that that LINECO glue does dry clear and not tacky, so if you just let your glue dry, if it's squished out, it would be fine. Okay, and just checking that that folds down nicely, which it does, and pops up. Okay, switching to a new fence, I'm going to cut off the right side large fence post. Okay, and then I'm going to use the card itself to kind of tell me how many fence posts I need to trim off the other end. So it looks to me if I take off about 2 of them, I'll be within the card. So I'm going to take off 2 of the fence posts off of the left-hand side of that fence. All right, now when I glue that on, I'm figuring out here that it looks like the first 4 fence posts are going to attach to the mechanism. So at the bottom, I can go in the inner 2, I can go a little bit taller, but then in the outer 2, I kind of need to keep it a little bit lower on the adhesive just because it's the mechanism isn't as tall in that area. And then now I'm just going to attach that to my other mechanism. So just taking my time and pinching that fence onto that mechanism, making sure that it's nice and adhered all the way to the bottom. And then I can check it and make sure that those fences aren't getting hung up on each other and they're working wonderfully. Okay, to make a gate, I'm going to start from another fence again, and this time I'm going to trim everything off to the left side of the wide fence post. And then I'm going to keep 4 fence posts and trim off the right-hand side. And then I also want to trim off the top of the 4th fence post because I'm going to replace that with one of the wide ones. So just trimming out to where I just have a wide fence post, I'm going to glue that one on over that right fence post. All right, so then just for visual symmetry, I'm going to add a wide fence post over the top of the left one. So that way the right side and the left side kind of look the same. And then on the back of the fence, I can still see that small fence post that I had covered up with the large one. So I'm going to do another wide one on the back just to kind of have that sandwiched between 2 so that you don't see the small fence post that's in the middle. Okay, so here's my finished gate, and now this can attach to the card, and it's going to attach to the front of that Mini Pops platform. So right there, and it's just going to kind of float. So a little adhesive on the front of that Mini Pops platform. Okay, and then keeping my card open so I can get a good positioning on that. Then I'm just going to go in and pinch my gate to that Mini Pops platform so that it's in line with the other fence. And then I can carefully close the card. That gate's going to come up and over the top of the other fence, and I can give it a good press in the closed position. And there you have it. One pop-up fence and gate card, and now it's just ready for decorating. Okay, I'm not going to make you watch me decorate that fence, but let me show you what I did. I added grass along the bottom, so the grass comes with the fence add-ons. And the little flower and stems, those come with the fence add-ons. Then the vine, the darker green vines, those came out of the Flower Pot add-ons. And you can find links to all of the dies that I used in the description box below. So also in the Flower Pot add-ons is a cute little butterfly and butterfly body, so I cut those out of blue cardstock where I had added some clear packaging tape to the cardstock before die cutting, and that way my little butterflies are shiny. And then I turned to our Bouquet Bits die set for the rest of the decoration. So that's a great little set that creates all of these fun little flower picks that you can put in your bouquet cards, but you can use all of the pieces independently as well. Now, to kind of match the styling of the birds in the paper, I went with gray cardstock and some black ink to style the little bird out of the bouquet bits. And then for the birdhouse, the overlay piece has a wood grain texture in it. So I decided to cut that out of a white cardstock with double-sided adhesive on the back, and then use a brayer and some ink to brush ink over the top. And that way the wood grain pattern would stay white and the rest of it would turn brown. So then I would get a really large amount of contrast on that piece. And then there is a background piece for the birdhouse and a little roof decor piece as well. So just layering those three together, and then taking one of the picks that comes in the set, I can glue my birdhouse to that and then add that little bow that also comes in the set. So just making a cute little birdhouse pick. And then I'm just going to tuck the bird's wing over the edge of the birdhouse so that the bird is just tucked on top. So that's a fun little embellishment to do whether or not you're making a flower bouquet, so for this case, I'm going to stick my little flower pick on the fence. And I decided to go over the wide fence post. That seemed to be a good spot to leave myself enough room behind it for it to not stick out of the card when the card was closed. I chose a greeting of fluttering by to say hello from our special delivery clear stamp set. I used one of the Katherine label dies to cut out the fluttering by to say, and then I used the rectangle from the bouquet bits to cut out hello. For the inside greeting, I decided to make it a little sign, so I pierced holes on the side, wove some twine through and tied knots, and then now I can dangle that hello sign off of the gate. I'll use a pop dot to hold it to the gate in the position that I like. Now, it's certainly optional to add a place to sign the card for this card because the pattern paper is so light that I could have just signed right on the pattern paper, but I decided to layer a couple of Katherine labels together and glue those inside the card as a place to sign. And then I added 2 additional butterflies to the fence. Okay, so that completes the inside of my card. I can close that, make sure everything folds down nicely. And then now all I have left is to decorate the front. Okay, front of the card, I just had to work in something that would cover the seam between the pattern paper. So I decided on 2 vines from the Flower Pot Add-ons, my layered Katherine labels with my front greeting, just making sure that the entire seam between the papers is covered. And then I did 3 additional butterflies for the front of the card. My finished card measures 5 by 6, so I will mail that in an A7 envelope. And certainly explore other themes with this card design because it would make a lovely birthday card or Mother's Day, sympathy. You really could use it for almost anything. If you are interested in what I used to make this card, check that description box below this YouTube video. So there you're going to find supply links as well as a link to the blog post. And on the blog post, you're going to find photographs of my card as well as links to all of the wonderful Designer's Choice inspiration by our very talented design team. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBerniston.com where you can purchase these dies as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.